was ma view ups office. Now, just like the other, anybody who's watched any of the actual ceremonies themselves is probably familiar with the fact that I repeat that in between parts, and how many times I say that varies. Sometimes I say it 9 times, sometimes whatever, but I say a chant of the season. But this is the seasonal chant from last year. And I instantly thought that this was my best live recorded ritual. And none of it was saved. Nothing from the video was
oh wow.
But I shared I came back the next day and shared my experience. And I had my experience while I was there. It wasn't about putting on a show. And that's one of the things that people need to remember about this stuff, is it's
right.
not about putting on a show. So
right. It's experiences.
And all I need is this book right here. All I need to know that they played games with the Bible translations is even some of the later manuscripts, they got it wrong in a few parts in terms of they didn't render it so literally. And why did they not render it so exactly? Because they were trying to make another point.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand how people get like with other like with Quran translations and some other stuff. Once they find out what the Christians did in particular, and that the Jews what they've done in commenting, and you can't trust a Talmudic track to actually be supported by the scripture that it's supposed to be related to. I've seen myself. I stopped in at a Jewish school, and I don't remember exactly where it was. It was in Oregon, and their library was open, and they so they had this big they had a wall of Talmud, like it's like a lot of books. I don't know. It's supposed to be like millions of page of words, like 1.3 million words or something like that. So it's a bunch of volumes. And awesome. I saw I in my time looking there, I saw a couple different examples where they told you, don't follow Torah. No, don't you dare follow Torah. Follow our rabbis. But they don't say it like that. It's not. It's like, oh, wait, what? Half the people that are even been blindly following the rabbis for the longest time are going to be like that. No, it's this because of this, and there's some story of some other some rabbi during the time of Gamaliel or whatever, and then eventually they get to the point where, oh yeah, we do something different than the commandment. Mm-hmm. Right, so it's it's kind of in it, that, but it's funner, I guess, to talk about where the issues actually arise. But 9:13. Oh, I'm on the wrong page. So Matthew 9:13. Okay. But having gone, learn what is mercy I desire and not sacrifice. For I came to call the righteous. I came not to call the righteous, but sinners to repentance. But that bit that's real. The Christians tend to misuse it because that's not really what's being said. It's not saying give up all these things, because obviously it's having Jesus and even Paul do these sacrifices and stuff. But it's not the point that, oh, you go and sacrifice to make up for what a bad boy you were and all that other stuff. But the fact is, it's actually supposed to be corrective. So work on correcting yourself. Don't work on just how am I going to, Every time we go to the conference for work, I cheat on my wife, and how am I going to? Oh yeah, I'll donate some money to the church. Okay, like no, just stop with that.
Right. Just stop.
And the sacrifice was the same thing. It's like you have people that don't have.
You were speaking.
What?
Oh, when you were speaking about just a minute ago about actual experiences, my first outdoor ritual that I recently had, I had an actual experience, and I wasn't afraid whatsoever, and I look forward to upcoming. It's hard to describe it, the feelings, and it's
so whether you want to use a pen or something like that, here's a symbol I've specifically been shown relating to this ritual. And so I'll send you the graphic if you want to do something with that.
I copied it down earlier.
12:33 of Mark. And to love him with all the heart and with all the understanding, with all the soul and with all the strength, and to love one's neighbor as oneself is more than all the burnt offerings and all the sacrifices. I mean, it includes rich scent offerings and all this other stuff, but it's more of a full thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's sort of I'll tell everybody straight up, it's sort of disappointing. It's sort of disappointing the experience of some of these rituals if you're like, oh, I just have to do this and this stuff, rather than working yourself into experiencing doing it, and maybe it's the best thing for one to do. So it's just a difficulty. You give up something.
Mm-hmm.
That's why people, the pilgrimage that I talked about on the other program, people practice their whole lives to do that stuff. They work on the regular prayers, they work on little chants they do, and meditative ways of walking. And when people finally get to it and they enact those psychological symbols, and so that's how it is. Now, this is not the right paint, so a lot of this is faded, but we can be honest, is that I pretty much have the same exact. Maybe some of those candles have burnt through, but it's pretty much the same arrangement. I don't know which candle is going to go in which directional spot, but that's probably the area where I'm going to do the rituals. That spot right there. So was it 217? The Philippines. But if I also am poured out on the if I also am poured out on the sacrifice and ministration of your faith, I rejoice with all you. Okay, that's interesting in two ways. So if you think of this, now it's really philosophized, but it's more like, okay, what message would God have for us or something? But so say divinity presences. It's not say that there's not this spiritual presence everywhere. It's just, it becomes particular in a way, perhaps, or your experience of it becomes particular. So opening up nexions and stuff like this is the sort of the idea. But also through the practices, it becomes a real world thing. And yeah, feel free to throw in any comment at some point. Romans 12:1. Interestingly enough, some of these passages that you look at in the Bible, if you realize that that Catholicism didn't exist at the time when the earlier versions of these were written, and some of the other stuff, and then you think, wait, there were Gnostics around. There were Essenes around and some other stuff. And it's like, some of their stuff's getting compiled into this Bible. Or maybe they're rendering text from these other groups into whatever. And you did find that. The book of Daniel, which I'm going to pick a selection from, kind of addresses that sort of thing. 12:1, I exhort you, therefore, brethren, by the compassion of God, be present, your bodies a sacrifice, living, holy, well-pleasing to God, intelligent service, your, okay, yeah. Again, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari, Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. Or Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hari Hari. So the latter one is the older one, but the one that starts with Krishna is the one that's the most common. But I may chant, the chant offering. The chant offering is probably the most common type of spiritual offering in this day and age. That's just the fact of the matter. So that's what one does, but it's your whole body. Just like I've said, the living and the dying and the sacrifice, it's all, and okay, then we had Luke 13:1. And then I'm going to at least show the cards that we're at 13:1. And were present, some at the same time, telling him about the Galileans, of whom blood Pilate mingled with the sacrifices. Now, if the ritual has been completed, don't worry about what other people have done after it. If you've done your part, don't worry about others coming and defiling the sacrifice. I don't think that's the point that the Bible makes there, but the point is that, hey, it's not what you did, it's what they did. So just don't worry, you fulfilled your bit. Mm-hmm. And Acts 7:42. Was Acts written by Luke, or was it written by? Acts was written, but one of the Gospels was written by one of the person who wrote Acts, and Acts was written in the 120s, and so was that other Gospel by somebody of the same exact name. And people forget, oh, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, it must be the people who Jesus knew. Wrong. Historically, as was supposed, we heard it from someone who heard it from someone who heard it from someone. You're talking about something the 2nd century. Almost all the Gospels never had any remnant before 120. Why 120? You know this answer?
I did not know that.
The Gospel of John was already written about Bacchus, so they just crossed some stuff out. But for Christianity really to take off, they came up with these other Gospels, and John became more important. It was the only one at some point, I think, probably, of the Christians, per se, some of the followers of the people that went into Jesus. But Apollonius Christ had to die, and he didn't die till about 100. And so when he was dead for a generation and his cult withered away, then Christianity could start popping its way back up. So it started to be known more about 120. And about 160, it became a significant thing that people knew about. It wasn't like this big old, it was still relatively small, but
wow, that's very interesting.
Okay, 7:42. Did I say that one?
So.
Okay, turned but God and delivered up them to serve the host of heaven, and has been written in the blood of the prophets, slain beasts and sacrifices you offer me for years when you were in the wilderness, O house of Israel. But yeah, you don't get it if you're outsiders and you just keep on just offering the form of the ritual and you don't believe in it and you don't put your thought into it and all that. It's like, what's it going to get you?
Mhm.
It's not that sometimes, a lot of the times, like the Catholic Church made up so many rituals and so many saints and stuff like this. What it was one to, you know, but okay, Hebrews 5:1, for every high priest from among men, having taken for men, is constituted in things relating to God, that he may offer both gifts and sacrifices for sins. But okay, you pick. It's okay to pick a leader, but I would strongly question this idea where you have a leader that you pick that's just like the professional, and you know, and all that other stuff, right?
Right.
You don't do it for ritual for hire and stuff like this, because all this stuff, like Aaron Leach, I kind of like his work, but the idea that it's like, okay, I really have to do well, because it's like, wait, you're more likely to do things perfectly if you're doing a ritual for hire than otherwise. That's questionable. So yeah, but I mean, it's obviously he's went through the work, but he admits that sometimes he's not whatever. But he's one of the what?
I don't understand how even the ritual for hire would work, because wouldn't one have to do the ritual themselves, to
Well,
get the
that's the thing
benefit?
too. It's like, okay, they the argument with the Become a Living God people is like, oh well, we give you this secret video link of doing the ritual, so you paid us hundreds of dollars to do the ritual. Here's this thing on the thing, and most of it's just, are you kidding me? You made it up on this, because some of the stuff that people released, what here's this dirty jar, and here's some paper and a marker, and I'm going to draw. Belial. Okay, it's Belial, and it, so yeah, but yeah, that's the thing. You have to, if you're not making the connection yourself.
Yeah,
it's like the Israel Regardie audio. If you've ever heard the Israel Regardie audio, the Golden Dawn stuff, he has a speech impediment, and I know myself. I if I get yelled at, I can't. I'm deprived of sleep or whatever the deal is. Sometimes my speech doesn't have the smoothness or the tone that I would desire it to have. I mean, I was trained as a choir boy and all that other stuff, but I can almost never do things like I want like that. But I forgot where I was. It wasn't. Is it Peter 2:5? Also, yourselves as stones living, that are being built up in a house spiritual, a priesthood holy, to offer spiritual sacrifices acceptable to God. Jesus Christ. Okay. Okay, so maybe I might leave off the ending of that, but the well, the methodology of whatever. See, so it's not that, oh, the person does it vicariously for you. There's a methodology of a particular individual. But yeah, it doesn't work for as much as some countries or some instances it's gotten away with that. Oh, 1 Corinthians, might as well. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense in the way that this world works. Doing these things on a spiritual level, because obviously giving something up and you don't have that spiritual thing with it, it's like, well, then you've just gone through the physical stuff. Like if you fast, not because you're doing a spiritual act, because you're just going without food or drink or something, it's like, well, you just pretty much made yourself hungry and thirsty.
Right.
And so see 1 Corinthians 10:18, I think is the last, what they call New Testament, which is not the right term for it if you compare it to here, because they would never call tonic Old Testament, especially Jesus is said to plerose, restore the law. Now, I'm not saying, be Christians or Jews, because I'm definitely not, but I'm just saying this is the mythology here that I'm responding to or working the energy of, because that's what I do with these various things. It's not that I'm changing a different religion every time. I'm working with the energy and the mythology that I can work with of the thing. I mean, I'm not saying the Jesus prayer or something over and over again until, or at all, but okay, see Israel according to flesh, but not those eating the sacrifices, fellow partakers with life. The altar are. So just like our quote from the Bhagavad Gita that we went over. So yeah, if you have any thoughts about any of the seasons, feel free not to just comment on some of the verses that are pointed out here, but.
Well, I had just a few minutes ago, before you mentioned the fasts, I had wrote down for spiritual reasons, if you want to take away the excesses of, out of the body, fasts, I know fasts help me to, fight off excess. Do you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's one of the things about it is it gets you in this, because like if you're doing a fast where you're like intermittent fasting, like say dawn to sunset, the 8 hours, then you start to break fat. So it clarifies it purifies the fat systems in your body, as well as working on the desires per se. And then you focus when you break your fast or in between those fasts. Like I've done 30 days and 29 days and 9 days and different 3 days a lot of months. Most months I do a 3 day in a row fast, and sometimes it's 5. Sometimes but when you break your fast, you don't just have junk food or something like that. You eat even better. You go out of your way to eat even better if there's a choice.
It
like
really.
If you do a juice fast, it's like, don't do a juice fast with added stuff to it. To have it just be pure juices. Don't have weirdo chemicals or a bunch of added sugar. You're trying to break through away from that stuff.
Sugar is a tough one. Sugar and caffeine is really tough.
But to basically start here, we have the Decan cards. So 3 cards a month. So Lughnasadh starts with the 6 of Swords. We have the Chariot as the month card. We have the Queen of Swords. I want to show the whole card, and we'll get back to this later. For the season, we have the Hanged Man. In almost every card, I like the Thoth Tarot more because it has more meaning. But anyways, for every, we have the Ace. Okay, where's the Ace? We have the Ace of Cups and the Princess of Cups. And that's 7. Oh, okay, and the Day. We forgot the Day card. So the Day card is the Sun. And there's 2 types of Day cards. It's more like Revelations, and sometimes it's a Sun Child. The Sun Child's probably pure to the tradition, but as you know, it was easier to get across the biblical examples of the theme. So that was one of the things going on there.
When I just saw all those cards, I just write down things as I see them. But I started looking at the cards, and this is what came to me. I saw a staircase that led upwards. I felt pride. I don't know why, but I wrote down pride. And then I saw a path leading to freedom and betterment. But it seems like the pride thing would have to just be, released to go
Well,
on to the
one of the things that I mentioned earlier, and I know I've mentioned it elsewhere, so you may have heard that. The word surah that I've mentioned earlier, it means a step in a structure. It means rank and all that stuff. So over time, you build things up. Now, in that way of thinking, it's like, hey, don't worry that you haven't learned or accomplished all that you've supposed to, as long as you're working towards it, as long as you're working towards Tola has said, hey, if I got my life left, I am path working this thing out. Don't worry about not having achieved it all yet, because it's okay, let me shine more light here, particularly. So Daniel 8:11 translates approximately, and it vaunted itself against the very chief of the host on account of the regular offering was suspended and the holy place abandoned. So sometimes people get the sign, it's like, okay, we got to do something different. I guess that's appropriate enough as something that follows up what you're talking about, right?
Mm-hmm.
And did he know Daniel is based, the Jewish book of Daniel is based on something that's at least 1,000 years prior.
Well,
They rewrote text about Daniel and his son into like the new kings going on, which you could have different figures, but there's some aspects about it that tell me, no, they did something a little stronger than that there. And okay, which of the 7 cards was I thinking of? Well, this is the science card. Let me go. Is this card showing clearly?
mm-hmm. Yeah.
So in some, in the Thoth deck, it says science right on this card. So it's bits. It's different aspects of stuff. And no, the cross doesn't necessarily mean that Kisma K Stepanich is Christian. There's a lot of uses of crosses. Let's see, but you're talking about individual parts. And they're often different places and different directions, and it just takes time with all that. But of course, okay, but of course, as we've seen in the Sun Child, there's that moment where we're liberated. And the chariot, that's the crazy chariot. The banshees that come and announce you, hey, you're gonna die. It's like, it's life's great reward. You're dying on the battlefield and all that. The Morgan, it doesn't say the Morgan, but you know what I mean. It's that sort of stuff.
Right.
To give us, there's that myth that the first cow brought, they didn't drink in Ireland and Scotland. They didn't drink milk until relatively late, and it was only rich people that started. And we still have issues with dairy. It's just a sign of our wealth that we can put a cow in one place and get milk from it. And this hangman dude's pretty cool, I guess. I think he's still alive. They're hanging. But yeah, eventually hanging up like that will kill you.
Yeah, I would say so.
And the guy's all kneeling down. I did what I had to do. But then again, maybe it's him. See, it's him that's gone through the thing, but we think it's the other thing. And that's the thing. You think you think you're like the executioner and all that other stuff, and you have to do all this stuff, and but of course all the cards, you know, the Princess of Cups, you know, yeah, it is the Princess of the Cups is always in the throne of the ace. So every quadrant has its princess and its ace being the same suit. But this is a rainbow thing, but not rainbow in the way that's often illustrated. They've kind of put this association with rainbows that isn't what they were talking about. And honestly, if you took it back in the day, do you think these people were more tolerant than the Christians were this stuff? No, they weren't.
No,
but
it
see,
seems
it's like it's lined out. So you have these emotional projections, this astral realm of a castle, but you build it over time. So you got your cups, and you contain yourself, and you make your way forward. And as even though the moon is even maybe your ability is that's a waning moon there. Why they picked a waning moon? They should have maybe put both to show your emotions can rise and fall on a new moon and another moon. I think they should maybe done them all to show you the rise and fall on the same point of the emotions, but that's one of the things there. We're not going to go into all of these, but maybe something from each one. For a Genesis 46:1. But I've already gone over. I mean, I've listed what the verses are, but I'm going to go over during my ritual. I'm going to. So Israel as not the tribe, but the person, set out with all his, and came to Beersheba, where he offered sacrifices to the God of his father Isaac. So how do you say that name? Bara Sheba. Okay, that's the name of the place. But hopefully a person's gone past this point where it's not just, oh, I'm going to worship what my ancestors worship. So here's my ancestors' names, and I'm praying to what they used to worship. Because that doesn't really resonate too well with me here. But Psalm 10. But then again, as I'm saying, I'm using this stuff according to my own beliefs and intentions. So it doesn't really matter whether it's put in the Christian thing or not here. 106.3. Okay, is the numbering right? Numbering different here? 107.3. No, I guess it is right. At the happy are they who act justly and do right at all times. But then it talks about the favor and all that stuff. So yeah, that sun child there. We're running out of time with this, but I think we've gone into enough. Definitely feel like if there's anything you want to share related to whatever. But the liberation, it comes through your a person's own innocence, not naivety, not naivety, but the through your own joy. Your joy is nothing to feel guilty or ashamed of, or maybe you just don't feel guilty or ashamed about it. The liberation, but the liberation isn't the end of the journey. You just keep on going.
Oh, yeah.
You're outside that gate with one's maturity, and you just keep on going where you're supposed to be. And he said, I was trying to think if there was something to do with the horse, but yeah.
Speaking about, just a thought I had about a horse. The my mother, she lost her dad which would have been my grandfather, when she was 13. And the night before he died, she dreamed of a white horse. She was chasing it, but she couldn't catch it. And her fingers would just go through its tail's mane, you know. So I don't know what made me think of that.
So you notice there's a white horse on this Princess of Cups card. And the Princess of Cups is, as much as anything in the tarot deck, is the Muse card. This artist comes forth and speaks poem, you know, sing all sorts of songs with the harp and all this stuff. And you see this Agnes Og and all this other stuff as this idea of that other card of the rare swan. You want the one swan that's the one for you, and it sticks out from the other swans and all that stuff. Now, I'm not one of those people that, you know, oh, you know, your so-called ideal partner, that was it. That was your only chance in life. You got to give up now. That's where Paul went wrong in the Bible. But yeah. So that's what the Princess of Cups was to me. I almost never came up with a song or poem or anything, and to communicate with her, I came up with all these spiritually imbibed poems. And that was what that was, you know, what was going on. So that's why she got that name as much as any. And you know, the thought here, rather than this big old war thing and cutting down the means, the fields of your enemy and all that stuff, depriving others of stuff, if they're, it's like, well, then just ignore them. Ignoring people, for the most part, can be what one does, rather than just lay waste and destruction and all that. But
right on.
Because, you know, you bring something of abundance. Well, what if there's some famine or drought or something? I'm really going to have to water tomorrow, I guess. But the you know, this idea of just war for, so it's called the season of war. But of course, war, you know, it comes with that warning. You know what's coming with it. And as I'm saying, we've got to prepare for some.
Yeah.
Oh, and there's spirals. You notice the guy's wand is flaming, and there's spirals of smoke going up from the magician card that I showed earlier.
Yeah.
And there's something written on there. I don't remember what exactly it says. It might just say Dogda or something. But obviously the references is a spiritual entity. But cauldrons instead of cups, and because the magician's the one who's got the basics of things. And that's what we need to do with the magician cards, right? Is we need to just not make it about a ritual, about what can we bring out into our lives, or what can we bring from our lives out into the ritual.
Yeah.
And I guess this is going to shut any second. So, so any thought you'd like to share as this thing closes on?
Just that word prepare, you know, ever since 2019, every time I hear the word prepare, it means something